Kore, nā te kore ko te pō, ka puta ki te whaiao ki te ao mārama. Ko rangi nui e tui honei, ko papa tuanuku e takoto ake nei. Ko ara ua tamariki, he atua, o te ngāhere, o te moana, o te hau, o te uenuku, o te puia, o te rūwhenua, o te aruhi, o te kūmara, o te wai Māori, o te tangata. Ti hei mauri ora.
He aku ira tangata. He tupu koe no te whenua o tō whaia. He puna koe no ngā wai o o tūpuna. He māngai koe mo o manātua. Engari, nā tēnei ao hau, kua mimiti haere tō tāua hononga. Ka kite au i tōku oranga ki roto i a koe. Ka kite hoki koe i tō oranga ki roto i a hau. Ā, kua he katoa tāua, kua he katoa tātai. Kua tai te wā mā tāua anō tāua e whakaora. Ko au, ko koe, ko tāua.
Ti hei Māori ora, e na mana, e na rau, e ra rangatira mā, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou whakaroa ka mai. E mihi ana au ki na mana whenua hurinoa o Tāmaki Makaurau, nā mihi nui ki a koutou. Ko Alex Tang toko ingoa, e mahi ana hei po arahi mō te tari tikanga tōkonga roa mātua i te kaunihera o Tāmaki Makaurau. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. It's my job, as Rod said, to walk you very quickly through Te Tarakia Tāwhiri Auckland's climate plan. And I thought it was only appropriate that we start this evening with the Atua video that you've just seen, developed by Rangatahi in partnership with Council and Mana Whenua, to support public consultation on what was then the Climate Action Framework, which is now Te Tarakia Tāwhiri Auckland's climate plan. It's a really appropriate launching point because it cuts to the heart of one of the foundational aspects of the plan, this deeply cultural narrative of Te Tarakia Tāwhiri, a narrative gifted to us by Mana Whenua and speaks to the struggles of Tāwhiri Mātia, the primal ancestor associated with weather in the face of human-induced climate change. Te Tarakia Tāwhiri calls for a change in our response to climate change, a need to reframe, to reimagine, to reset, and to shift from what has been a very human-centred approach to climate response to one that is actually ecologically driven. And we have in Te Tarakia Tāwhiri a response to climate change that's underpinned by the unique characteristics of the region, one that places a focus on Te Ora a Tāmaki Makaurau, the well-being of Tāmaki Makaurau, that reflects the diversity of who we have in this place and stresses the importance of equity in our response to climate change, including, importantly, this intergenerational aspect, the voices of our rangatahi, who have played a key role in setting the context for the plan and driving us forward to what we have in front of you. Te Tarakia Tāwhiri, as Rod's alluded to, prioritises collaborative and collective action because there is no way we can achieve our climate goals individually. That's something we'll hopefully come back to in the panel discussion. And it also recognises the key role that Tāmaki Makaurau and Aotearoa New Zealand needs to play on a national and global stage. Alongside this foundation of a Tāmaki Makaurau response are two activities, reducing our emissions and preparing for the impacts of climate change. The first is really centred on our current emissions profile, which some of you will know very well, one that has a significant transport component, 43.6%. Of which the majority comes from cars and light commercial vehicles. But we cannot forget the energy used to power our buildings, our manufacturing and construction, our agricultural activities, which form about 27%, our industrial processes and product use, 20%, as well as waste and our broader agricultural emissions. The second really looks at the projections that we've modelled for the region, increasing temperature, more volatile precipitation patterns, escalating sea level rise, which will drive a whole range of physical, ecological, societal and economic risks and vulnerabilities. From these two key pieces of evidence stem our dual goals, halving regional emissions by 2030, reaching net zero by 2050, whilst also taking a precautionary approach to planning for the impacts of climate change. In Te Tārakia Tāwhiri, we have taken these overarching goals and drawn out what we hope is a challenging but necessary blueprint for the whole region to achieving them. To halve our emissions, we have modelled a plausible decarbonisation pathway, one that, yes, weighs heavily on transport, because in transport we have already most of the solutions readily available, but is a plan that also requires bold, ambitious action across all sectors. In the pathway, we've modelled our transport emissions reducing by 64%, a 65% reduction in stationary energy, so that's things like electricity, natural gas use in our buildings and manufacturing, as well as a 24% reduction in our waste, which actually just means our waste emissions plateauing, because our business as usual projections show that waste will increase in emissions. And also, not forgetting 15% reduction in our agricultural emissions in line with what we're seeing around the nation. If we don't hit one of these targets, then some other sector needs to pick up the slack, which is why we need collective action at all levels across all sectors. And in our precautionary approach to planning for change, we recognise that the current path that we're on is not a 1.5 degree path. It is significantly more. And we're already seeing those impacts of climate change, so we must plan for those impacts of a 2, 3 or more degree world. This doesn't mean doing everything now. It doesn't mean making every decision now, but it means we need to be ready to act and take action quickly when we need to. We also need to make sure that we're not making decisions today that are too hard or too costly to change into the future. So hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at Te Tārakia Tāwhiri. It identifies 8 priority action areas that are critical to achieving these dual goals, from the natural and built environment to our transport systems and wider economy, the opportunity of a more resilient, low carbon and healthy food system, the need to consider the risks to our communities and coast, as well as Te Pua Waitanga o Te Tātai, intergenerational whakapapa connections. And finally, the challenge we face in transitioning or creating a clean energy and industrial system that supports our resilient low carbon objectives. I'm not going to go into them here. I will leave you to explore the plan, which now is live at climateakl.co.nz. The final thing that I just wanted to note at the start is this plan recognises and reiterates that the successful implementation of this plan requires a collective response. The plan sets out key actions, actors, activities within each of those 8 priority areas, and every single one of us has a role to play as individuals, as members of communities, businesses, and across our networks that we each hold, to advocate, to lead, to partner, to own and facilitate. Because the one thing that we know for certain is that the future will look different. How different it looks is entirely up to us.
Auckland's climate is changing. Higher temperatures, more extreme weather events, coastal erosion. These changes will impact our infrastructure, economy, natural environment, and our lifestyles. Te Tāruke a Tāwhiri. Auckland's climate plan is our region's pathway to reducing emissions 50% by 2030 and preparing for the future. And we all have a role to play. Aucklanders, business, industry, community, government in delivering the plan. By promoting and enabling low-emission transport options, investing in green business opportunities, and increasing sustainable use of resources. Planning for the future and how and where we grow as a region, while protecting and connecting our natural environment. To support a thriving economy and resilient communities. And Te Ora o Tāmaki Makaurau, the well-being of Tāmaki Makaurau. Join us. Together, we can make a difference and create a Tāmaki Makaurau we can all be proud of.
Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.